everyone. I am citizen spokesperson Ashley Waxman Bakshi. This is the daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. We are live on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Please begin submitting questions in the chat. Our briefings are now available shortly after broadcast as podcast episodes on all major podcast platforms. Today is day 265 of the October 7th war. Yesterday, I saw a very disturbing video. In the video, Hamas shoots at people helping Gaza's children. Of course, you may not have seen it on the nightly news, but the video came out showing Hamas shelled UNICEF, the UN's children's organization. Israel and UNICEF were coordinating a convoy of clearly marked UN vehicles, reuniting Gazan children with their families. And then Hamas terrorists opened fire at them in broad daylight, at people helping Gazan children, Thankfully, after taking cover, the UN Children's Convoy was able to complete its mission. We all know by now that the Hamas terror regime is trying to create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and Israel is trying to stop it. Hamas wants to intentionally cause civilian suffering to frame Israel and inflict international condemnation on the sovereign country at war with a genocidal terrorist organization. Israel is fighting to end the Hamas terror regime, to promise a better future for the people of Israel and Gaza alike. The world must stop Hamas's evil efforts to make their own people suffer. Hamas has repeatedly attacked Israel's families from Gazan schools and hospitals. Hamas's rockets, which aim at murdering children in Israel, have fallen short and murdered children in Gaza. Hamas has gunned down Gazans, stolen aid, and stopped them from evacuating out of harm's way. Hamas shoots at Gaza's children. Every day Hamas holds any power is a day Hamas threatens every child in Israel and Gaza. My colleagues have previously discussed the IPC's new report admitting there is no famine in Gaza. The report is clear that there never was a famine. They'd have to ignore literally tens of thousands of tons of food to say that. And their previous predictions that there would be a famine were completely disconnected from reality. Despite these findings, international media is continuing to report about famine. They are spreading misinformation and are essentially contributing to Hamas propaganda. Many of the organizations and media that blasted the false famine claims, instead of admitting that they were completely wrong, are doubling down. But the IPC's report not only shows that there isn't and wasn't ever a famine, but get this, the people in Gaza are actually better fed now than before Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. We also mentioned a few days ago, UNRWA hid its reporting of aid entering Gaza. Well, then they must have finally been embarrassed into putting the numbers back online. Except now, UNRWA added a disclaimer. They admit in fine print that they are not counting all the aid. We've been saying for months that more aid is entering now than before the war. We've been pointing out that groups like UNRWA were lying to cover up for Hamas because UNRWA is a Hamas front. Everything they have said is a lie, targeting the Jewish state, meant to leave the October 7th monsters free to plan another massacre, as they again and again vow to do so. UNRWA is not the only international organization in league with terrorists. Doctors Without Borders is also giving cover to jihadists. Earlier this week, Doctors Without Borders condemned Israel for the senseless killing of one of its medical staff, Fadi al-Wadi. But turns out, Fadi al-Wadi was a terrorist fighting with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group, an internationally banned terror group, an Iranian proxy army that took part in the brutal massacres of October 7th. Psychotherapists by day, rocket experts by night. Al-Wadi used his knowledge of chemistry and electronics to develop the rockets that terrorized children in Israel and murdered children in Gaza. And he used MSF to hide his terror under a veneer of humanitarian work. Doctors Without Borders owes us answers. Did they know he was a terrorist? Because we know Hamas and PIJ hire medics who pretend to be civilians. If they didn't know, why not? Why doesn't it bother to check? Anyone donating to these organizations should be outraged and should express that outrage to the people like Doctors Without Borders who used your money to fund a terrorist. All right, let's take some questions from our audience watching live on various social media platforms. Please continue to submit your questions.
Our first question comes from Instagram. Israel has a strong army, but can they really defeat Hamas? How do you kill an ideology?
So let's begin by saying that it's not the army's job to kill an ideology. And the goals of the war are very clear. It is to destroy Hamas's military capability so that we don't have the imminent threat as we had on October 6th. For the ideology, of course, this is something that will take time. I believe that it is possible to do, just as we have seen throughout history with Nazi Germany and the Japanese. It can be done. Education is key. And of course, we know now that UNRWA, Hamas front, can no longer be in charge for educating the children of Gaza if we want a bright future for the people of Gaza and for the children of Israel. I believe that we need to see a strong coalition of moderate Arab-friendly neighbors coming together and helping us re-educate the population to want peace and not to simply eradicate and annihilate all the Jews.
Our next question comes from X. If Israel says that it is fighting Hamas, then what is Israel's excuse for killing people in Jenin, Nablus, and Qalqilia?
Great question. I've seen online over the various months people saying over and over again, but what about the West Bank? What about Judea and Samaria? Hamas are not in the West Bank. Well, contrary to popular belief, Hamas is very strong in the West Bank. And in fact, if there were elections held tomorrow, Hamas would likely win. And that's why the Palestinian Authority is not holding elections for many, many years. But it's important to note that it's not only Hamas that's a terrorist organization operating from within the West Bank. We have many organizations, the PFLP, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Lion's Den, if you've ever heard of them. And over the past months and over many years, we've seen numerous terrorist attacks coming out of the West Bank into Israel proper and killing innocent Israeli civilians. Israel has an obligation, and the IDF has an obligation to defend its and protect its civilians, whether it's terrorism coming out of Gaza or out of the West Bank as well. Just today, it was released that an Israeli soldier by the name of Alon Sakagio was killed. There was an attack on an IDF military ambulance, and this just proves that there are terrorists in the West Bank as well. No Israeli soldiers would be killed if there was nobody fighting back at them in the West Bank.
Our last question for today. Arabic media reported that explosives were found in Jordan on the way to the West Bank, but Jordan stopped them. What does the Arab world think of Hamas?
I think this question just shows how complicated the Middle East is and how people tweeting, over in America really have no idea of how complicated it is here. There is cooperation between Jordan and Israel when it comes to the illegal smuggling of weapons and arms coming in, of course, from the east, from Iran. And Israel's longest border is with Jordan. Jordan does not want radical, fundamental Islamic terrorist organizations and the Iranian proxies to have explosives within its borders as well. They understand, just like many of our regional partners, that Iran is a threat not only for Israel, but also for the entire region and the war. This is a much bigger and broader geopolitical war. Iran's aim is to cause chaos and instability. That is what they are doing or aiming to do with Hezbollah and with Hamas and with the Houthis. And that is what they're trying to do by trying to penetrate Israel from our eastern border as well. Rest assured, Israel will not allow them to bring chaos and instability to Israel. So thank you very much for your questions. Thank you for joining us today. Please make sure you're following on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and our new podcast. And we will see you Sunday, 3 o'clock is Israel time and 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Djobnik signing off.